They poisoned my lake at 3 a.m. because the HOA president decided my fishing hobby was lowering property values. Here's what she didn't bother to research before dumping 5 gallons of industrial algaecide into the water. That lake feeds the underground aquifer supplying every well in her precious subdivision, including hers. By 6 a.m., I was sitting on my dock, the same dock where my late wife and I used to watch sunrises, drinking coffee and watching 27 neighbors haul water jugs to their cars. The HOA president's lawn sprinklers were spraying liquid that smelled like a nail salon dumpster. Her white Range Rover had brown spots where she'd tried washing it that morning. I didn't cause this. I just knew it was coming. Drop a comment if your HOA has ever shot themselves in the foot. I'll wait. I've got all day and a front row seat. Let me rewind 18 months, back when I thought petty fines were the worst thing a homeowners association could do. My name's Wes Bridger. 52, former civil engineer, took early retirement when my company got bought out and turned every Monday meeting into a death march through PowerPoint slides. The severance was enough to finally do what my wife Lori and I had planned. Fish every morning, stop wearing ties, and never say circling back again. Then Lori got cancer. Stage 4 pancreatic. 6 months from diagnosis to hospice. The retirement we'd planned became hospital fluorescent lights and the smell of antiseptic over everything. When she died, I inherited her uncle's 12-acre property in Ridgeline Meadows, Georgia, a spring-fed lake that had been in her family since Kennedy was president. That lake was the last place I could hear Lori laugh without my chest caving in. We'd spent weekends there teaching neighborhood kids how to cast, counting herons, throwing back every bass. The ritual mattered. The gravel crunching under my F-250, cicadas sawing through Georgia heat, warm mud and willow bark smells mixing with my morning coffee. Here's the critical detail. My property predates the Homeowners Association by 40 years. The county recorded my lake as a private agricultural water feature in 1962. I'm surrounded by the Ridgeline Meadows subdivision on 3 sides, but I never signed their covenants. Legally, the HOA has as much authority over my land as I have over the moon. You'd think that would end the discussion. It did not. Deirdre Colfax became HOA president the same year I moved in. 58, real estate agent, 4th term in office, drove a white luxury SUV with vanity plates reading Home Rule. She had the kind of smile that made you check your wallet afterward. Her power came from marriage. Her husband Clayton was nephew to the original developer, which in Ridgeline Meadows made her practically royalty. She ruled the HOA like Mussolini ran trains. Fines for grass 1/4 inch too tall. Bans on vegetable gardens, bird feeders, anything rustic. She'd once cited a retired Marine for flying his flag at non-regulation height. The guy had measured it with a laser level and proved her wrong. She fined him anyway for causing neighborhood discord. What Deirdre wanted, what she'd wanted since I arrived, was my property gone and me with it. 4 lakefront lots at $800K each meant $3.2 million in commissions for her family's development company. I'd gotten 6 lowball offers through anonymous LLCs, each one more insulting than the last. I ignored every one. That's when the certified letter arrived. The envelope smelled like drugstore perfume and anger. Inside, 2 pages of HOA letterhead citing unapproved recreational activity visible from public streets and threatening immediate legal action including property liens if I didn't cease fishing operations. I actually laughed out loud, scared a heron off my dock. I responded professionally, attached property records, cited the grandfather clause, and suggested in polite engineer speak that her threats had the legal weight of a fortune cookie. Sent it certified mail, return receipt. Her response came from the county instead. A zoning inspector appeared 3 days later investigating a complaint that I was running illegal commercial fishing tours. He walked my property, apologized for the waste of time, found nothing. Then he leaned against his truck and said quietly, "She's got friends in the county office, Mr. Bridger. I'd watch my back if I were you." That night, I learned what he meant. I woke at dawn to make coffee, walked out to the dock, and stopped cold. My dock was floating in the middle of the lake, 40 yards from shore. Someone had cut every anchor line with a knife sharp enough to leave clean edges. No fraying, intentional. A teenager 2 streets over told me later he'd seen Clayton's black Audi parked on the access road at 11 p.m. No proof. But the message was clear. This wasn't about property values anymore. This was war. 6 a.m. I stumbled out in boxers and flannel, coffee mug in hand, French roast that smelled like burnt caramel, the only luxury I allowed myself anymore. Walked toward the dock, stopped. The lake looked like someone had poured motor oil across the surface. Rainbow sheens caught the early light in patterns that were almost beautiful if you didn't know what they meant. But it was the smell that hit first. Bitter chemical stink, like gasoline mixed with nail polish remover, sharp enough to make my eyes water. Then I saw the fish. Bass. Bluegill. That massive catfish I'd named Herbert, who'd been dodging my hook for 2 years. All floating belly up in clusters, mouths open, gills frozen. The water was glass still. No ripples, no jumping fish. Even the frogs had gone silent, like nature itself was holding its breath. I stood there watching 20 years of ecosystem die, and my first thought wasn't anger. It was clarity. Someone did this on purpose. My boots squelched through mud that now smelled sweet, rotten, and chemical as I walked the shoreline. That's when I found them. 2 5-gallon jugs half buried in the brush. AquaClear Pro Industrial Algaecide, the kind with hazard symbols that look like angry faces. Empty. I'd seen these before, back when I was engineering municipal water systems. We needed EPA permits just to transport this stuff, let alone dump it. The copper sulfate in industrial algaecide doesn't just kill algae. It bioaccumulates, sinks through porous soil, and contaminates groundwater for years. You don't use it near drinking water, ever. I bagged 1 jug with a trash bag from my truck and called County Environmental Services, told them very calmly that someone had committed a felony on my property. The inspector arrived in 90 minutes, which told me he understood exactly how bad this was. While he was taking water samples, my phone buzzed. Facebook notification from the Ridgeline Meadows HOA group. Deirdre had posted 40 minutes ago. Wonderful news. The unsightly fishing pond has been treated for algae overgrowth. Property values protected. I read it 3 times. She'd confessed, publicly. Before anyone had even confirmed what chemical was used. She'd tagged it community improvement. I screenshot it, sent it to the inspector. He looked at my phone and actually laughed, that dark laugh you make when you can't believe what you're seeing. She posted this before we arrived? She's very proactive, I said. I forwarded the screenshot to the sheriff's department. Subject line, suspect confession, see attached evidence. 20 minutes later, a deputy was photographing the jugs and taking my statement. He asked about security cameras. I didn't have any. But he said he'd request footage from neighbors. Turned out Deirdre's own Ring doorbell caught Clayton's black Audi leaving their driveway at 3:17 a.m. The deputy grinned when he told me. They always forget their own cameras. By noon, the neighborhood Facebook page was a civil war. Half the comments backed Deirdre. That pond is an eyesore, and property values matter. The other half were furious. She poisoned wildlife? And this is illegal. But I wasn't paying attention to Facebook anymore. Because within 48 hours, the calls started. Neighbors reporting brown well water, water that smelled like sulfur and chemicals. Kids getting rashes from showers. One family's white laundry came out stained rust orange. Private well tests came back hot. Elevated copper, chemical compounds matching the algaecide profile. That's when I got a visit from a county geologist I'd never met. He showed up unannounced, unrolled an aquifer map on my truck hood, pointed to my lake with a chewed pen. Your lake sits directly on the Meridian Aquifer, he said. Porous limestone karst underneath. Everything that goes into your lake filters down through 50 feet of rock and feeds every private well in this subdivision. My stomach dropped. So when she dumped chemicals, she poisoned her own drinking water and everyone else's within a quarter-mile radius. The toxin's already in the aquifer. It'll take 6 months minimum to flush out naturally, maybe longer depending on rainfall. I thought about Deirdre filling her coffee maker that morning, washing her face, watering her lawn. She'd shot herself in the foot. Except it wasn't her foot, it was her entire neighborhood's water supply. The HOA held an emergency meeting that night, standing room only. Deirdre tried blaming me, claiming I'd contaminated the aquifer with fishing activities, and the algaecide just revealed existing pollution. Nobody bought it. I didn't attend. Didn't need to. Instead, I called my college buddy Mitch Cordell, environmental attorney, shark in a suit. Owed me a favor from when I'd redesigned his house's foundation for free. Sent him everything. Facebook confession, jug photos, well tests, aquifer map. His text came back in 8 seconds. Federal violations, state violations. Civil liability in 7 figures. Settle or destroy her. I sat on my rebuilt dock, neighbors had helped me anchor it that afternoon, and thought about Deirdre's champagne glass emoji, about Lori teaching kids to fish here, about every person who'd been crushed by someone with a title and a power trip. "Let her keep digging," I texted back. "I want to watch her hit bedrock." Deirdre didn't apologize, didn't admit fault. Instead, she doubled down. 3 days after the poisoning, I'm at the grocery store buying catfish bait and beer when I see her in the produce section, squeezing avocados like she's personally offended by their ripeness. She sees me. I see her. For a second, I think maybe she'll just pretend I don't exist. Instead, she pulls out her phone and starts filming. "There he is," she announces loudly enough that people 2 aisles over turn around. "The man who's been dumping fertilizer runoff into our aquifer for months, contaminating our children's drinking water." I'm standing there holding a pack of chicken livers and a 6-pack of Budweiser. I look at her phone camera. "Good morning, Deirdre." That's it. That's all I said. She follows me to the checkout, phone still recording, narrating like she's doing investigative journalism. Notice how he won't deny it. Notice how he's buying more chemicals, probably to dump in the lake tonight. The cashier looks at my chicken livers, then at me, then back at Deirdre like she's watching a nature documentary about a rare species of crazy. 2 days later, Deirdre files for a restraining order, claims I verbally threatened her at the grocery store and she fears for her safety. Attaches the video as evidence. The judge watches it, watches me say, "Good morning," and denies the request immediately. But the damage is done. Now there's a legal filing with my name on it suggesting I'm dangerous. Her brother-in-law, a guy named Dale who owns a pool cleaning business called Crystal Clear Pools and Spas, suddenly becomes a water quality consultant. He produces a 12-page report with clip art graphics claiming agricultural contamination from fishing activities caused the aquifer pollution. The report cites zero actual science, just a lot of phrases like observed runoff patterns and common sense analysis. The HOA board, still under Deirdre's control, votes to sue me for diminishing property values through negligent environmental practices. They're suing me for poisoning that she caused. I get hate mail. Anonymous letters calling me a polluter, telling me to leave the neighborhood. Someone spray paints polluter across my mailbox in neon orange. The neighborhood kids who used to wave when I drove past now look away. Lori used to say, "People show you who they are when it costs them something." Deirdre was showing me she'd burned the entire subdivision down before admitting she'd made a mistake. So I started documenting everything. I bought a 3-ring binder, the thick kind with metal reinforcement, and started building a case like I was preparing for a murder trial. Every morning I'd photograph the lake from the same angle, same time, tracking the chemical sheen's slow dissipation. I paid out of pocket for independent lab analysis every week, $300 per test, but worth every penny. Each test showed the same copper sulfate signature matching the algaecide. I kept the empty jugs in a locked shed with timestamps written in permanent marker on the bags. I'd read about spoliation of evidence during my engineering days. If someone tries to destroy or steal evidence, that itself becomes a crime. Those jugs were now more valuable than gold. Then I recruited allies. First was Tomas Kellen, retired EPA field agent, lived 2 streets over in a house with an RV in the driveway, an RV that Deirdre had fined him $500 for parking on his own property. Tomas despised her with the quiet intensity of a man who'd spent 30 years dealing with environmental criminals and recognized one when he saw one. I showed him my evidence. He reviewed the lab reports, examined the jugs, and said, "Federal threshold for prosecution is met. She's looking at Clean Water Act violations, minimum." Second ally, Cheryl Nguyen, investigative reporter for the regional Georgia news station, grew up fishing the same lakes I did, had been looking for a suburban corruption story to make her career. I sent her everything, the Facebook confession, the aquifer map, the fake expert report from the pool guy. She called me back in 10 minutes. "Can I bring a camera crew?" "Not yet," I said. "Let her think she's winning." Meanwhile, my lawyer Mitch filed a quiet discovery motion. In legal terms, discovery means the other side has to hand over all their communications related to the case. Emails, texts, everything. The HOA's lawyer, probably not thrilled about defending this mess, complied. That's when we hit gold. Emails from Deirdre to the HOA board. "We need to eliminate the fishing pond before property assessments." Texts from Deirdre to Clayton 3 days before the poisoning. "Handle the pond problem this week. Make it look environmental." A group chat where she'd researched how to make a lake unusable without obvious evidence. Premeditation, in writing, time-stamped. Mitch forwarded it all to the EPA investigator and the district attorney. Then he did something beautiful. He filed an amended complaint adding every single email as an exhibit. Public court record. Anyone could read them. The HOA's insurance company got wind of the emails and sent an adjuster. He read for about 20 minutes, then sent a formal letter denying coverage. Insurance doesn't cover intentional criminal acts. The HOA was now personally liable, meaning every homeowner in the subdivision could be on the hook for damages. Deirdre called an emergency meeting to vote on a special assessment, $5,000 per household for a legal defense fund. The meeting turned into a shouting match. Attendance tripled. People were screaming about their water bills, their medical bills from rashes, their ruined washing machines from contaminated water. The treasurer resigned in protest, walked out mid-meeting. I attended, didn't say a word, just sat in the back row and handed out photocopied lab reports showing the chemical match between the algicide and the well contamination. 80 people read them in real-time silence. You could hear the HVAC system humming, hear someone's stomach growl, hear Deirdre's world cracking. She stared at me from the front table, face red, hands shaking. I just smiled and left. That night, someone slashed 2 tires on my truck and spray-painted snitch on my shed. The sheriff increased patrols. A deputy started parking at the end of my driveway overnight. But something else happened too. Neighbors started showing up. Tomas organized an informal watch schedule. People brought casseroles. A guy I'd never met helped me repaint the shed. That's when I realized Deirdre had united the neighborhood, just not behind her. 10 p.m. on a Wednesday. I'm on the couch in an undershirt and jeans watching a Braves game with the sound off when headlights sweep across my living room window. Someone's pulling into my driveway. I look out. Black Audi, Clayton. I open the door before he can knock. He's wearing khakis and a polo shirt that probably cost more than my monthly electric bill, holding a manila envelope like it contains nuclear launch codes. Wes, can we talk, man to man? I lean against the doorframe. It's 10 o'clock, Clayton. I know. But this situation, it's gotten out of hand, for everyone. He glances behind him like he's worried someone's watching. Can I come in? Just 5 minutes. I let him in. Don't offer him a seat. He stands in my living room looking at the mounted base on the wall, the photo of Lori and me at Lake Lanier, the stack of legal documents on my coffee table. He sets the envelope down, opens it. Inside is a cashier's check, $150,000. This is more than your property's worth on the open market, he says. No realtors, no closing costs, no hassle. You sign an NDA, release all liability claims, and this is yours. Tomorrow, we drop all HOA complaints, you drop the lawsuit, and everyone moves on. I pick up the check. It's real. Drawn on a local bank, made out to cash. There's one condition, Clayton continues. You agree to sell the property within 6 months. We have buyers lined up. Quiet sale, fair price. Everyone walks away whole. I stand there holding $150K and thinking about what I could do with it. Pay off my truck. Take that Alaskan cruise Lori always wanted, but we never got to. Buy a little place on the coast where nobody knows me and there's no HOA within 50 miles. Then I think about Lori watching me teach those kids to fish. About the lab reports showing copper in their drinking water. About Deirdre's champagne emoji. Let me think about it, I say. Clayton exhales like I just lifted a piano off his chest. Thank you. I know Deirdre can be difficult, but she's just trying to protect the neighborhood. It got out of hand. We both know that. I walk him to the door, watch his taillights disappear down the driveway. Then I take 6 photos of the check from different angles, photograph Clayton's signature on the NDA, and email everything to Mitch with a timestamp. Subject line, bribery attempt, documentation attached. Mitch calls back in 3 minutes, laughing so hard he can barely breathe. They just handed you a federal obstruction case, offering money to suppress evidence in an ongoing criminal investigation. That's 18 U.S.C. Section 201. Clayton's looking at potential jail time. I forwarded the photos to the EPA investigator too. Then I put the check in a Ziploc bag and locked it in my shed next to the algaecide jugs. Some people collect stamps. I collect evidence. 2 days later, Cheryl's news segment aired during the 6 o'clock broadcast. HOA president accused of poisoning neighborhood water supply. They showed before and after photos of my lake. Interviewed residents holding bottled water and showing brown liquid running from their taps. displayed Deirdre's Facebook post with the champagne emoji blown up to fill the screen. A pediatrician talked about the rashes kids were getting. Then they showed Deirdre's mugshot-style photo from the HOA website and listed the potential charges: Federal Clean Water Act violations, state environmental tampering, negligence, fraud. The segment went viral within hours. Reddit picked it up, then statewide news. Then CNN ran a 2-minute version with the chyron HOA president poisons own neighborhood. Deirdre became a meme. Toxic Karen. People photoshopped her face onto poison bottles, hazmat suits, nuclear waste barrels. She tried fighting back, hired a crisis PR firm, probably cost her $10K just for the consultation, did a rambling interview with a local morning show where she blamed left-wing media and anti-HOA activists and property owners who refused to maintain community standards. The host asked her directly, "Did you authorize the use of algaecide on Mr. Bridger's lake?" She paused, then said, "I authorized an algae treatment to protect community health." She'd just confessed. On television. The host's face went blank for a second, that moment when a journalist realizes their guest just handed them a Pulitzer. The clip got 200,000 views in 24 hours. Meanwhile, inside the HOA, a mutiny was brewing. 3 board members resigned within a week. A petition started circulating demanding Deirdre's immediate removal, needed 60% of residents to sign. They got 73% in 4 days. I stayed quiet through all of it, declined every interview request, issued one written statement through Mitch. I just want my lake cleaned and my neighbor's wells safe. Everything else is in the court's hands. By staying silent while Deirdre gave interview after panicked interview, I looked reasonable. She looked unhinged. Then the vandalism escalated. I woke up one morning to find 2 truck tires slashed, not the same ones as before, the front ones this time, and "Snitch" spray painted across my shed in 3-foot-tall letters, fresh paint still dripping. The sheriff's department opened a criminal investigation into terroristic threats, increased patrols to twice nightly. But it was the community response that surprised me. Tomas showed up that afternoon with 4 other neighbors, all veterans, all carrying toolboxes. They repainted my shed in 2 hours, wouldn't accept payment. One guy, a Marine I'd never spoken to, said, "My daughter got a rash from that water. Deirdre did this, not you." Another neighbor offered to park his camper on my property as a deterrent. A local VFW post offered security patrols. I thanked them and politely declined the patrols, but I was genuinely moved. While Deirdre was hiring lawyers and PR firms and crisis consultants, I was doing something simpler. I was reading. Specifically, I was reading the HOA's original incorporation documents from 1987, all 63 pages, and on page 41, buried in section 14, subsection C, I found something beautiful, something that was going to end this war in one move. Mitch charged me $300 for a full title search and HOA covenant history from the county clerk. Took 2 weeks to get everything, stacks of documents going back to when this land was still growing tobacco, and the biggest concern was boll weevils, not property values. I sat at my kitchen table with coffee going cold, reading through deed restrictions and easement agreements and architectural guidelines written in the kind of dense legal language that makes your eyes cross. Most of it was standard HOA boilerplate, lawn height restrictions, paint color approvals, fence regulations. Then I hit page 41. Section 14, subsection C. No action by the homeowners association shall impair, restrict, or interfere with water rights, navigable water access, or riparian privileges predating the incorporation of this association. Any officer, director, or member who violates this provision shall immediately forfeit eligibility to hold association office or vote on association matters. I read it 3 times, then I read it again out loud to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. My lake existed in 1962. The HOA incorporated in 1987. 25 years difference, which meant any HOA action against my water rights wasn't just invalid, it automatically disqualified whoever took that action from holding HOA leadership. I called Mitch immediately. "Tell me I'm reading this correctly." He was quiet for a long time. I could hear him flipping through pages. "Holy hell, this is an original developer covenant. These run with the land. They're not suggestions, they're binding contracts that transfer with every property deed. Every homeowner in Ridgeline Meadows signed this when they bought their house." So Deirdre violated a contract she agreed to the day she moved in, and according to this clause, she forfeited her HOA presidency the moment she authorized action against your lake. I sat back in my chair. Every decision she's made since then, void. Completely void. The fines, the lawsuit, the special assessments, all of it. She's been operating without authority for months. We could have filed immediately. Could have slapped her with a motion to disqualify and ended it right there, but Mitch suggested something smarter. She doesn't know about this clause. Let her keep acting like she's in charge. Let her schedule meetings, make decisions, dig herself deeper. When we pull this out in front of the entire community, it won't just remove her, it'll obliterate her credibility permanently. I thought about it. The strategic part of my engineering brain loved it. Let her build her case, marshal her resources, prepare her defense, then pull the foundation out from under everything at once. She's planning a town hall meeting, I said, 2 weeks from now. Emergency meeting to address the frivolous lawsuit. Mitch laughed. Perfect. She's literally giving you the stage. Meanwhile, the environmental remediation company gave me their estimate, $180,000 to fully detoxify the lake and treat the aquifer contamination. Mitch filed it as damages in the civil suit. The HOA's insurance company, which had already denied coverage once, sent another letter, this time to every board member personally. We told you so. You're on your own. Deirdre didn't know about the covenant clause, didn't know her entire legal position was built on sand. She spent 2 weeks preparing for the town hall like it was the trial of the century, probably rehearsing her speeches, organizing her evidence, coordinating her supporters. I spent those 2 weeks sitting on my rebuilt dock, watching the lake slowly heal. Frogs were starting to return to the shoreline. The chemical smell was fading. I'd catch myself having imaginary conversations with Lori, telling her about the clause, about Deirdre's face when she'd finally hear it read aloud. This stopped being about the lake weeks ago. It became about every person who'd been steamrolled by someone with a clipboard and an inflated sense of authority. If I let Deirdre slither away with a settlement and an NDA, she'd just do this to the next person who didn't fit her vision of the perfect neighborhood. I decided to see it through to the end. Public accountability. On the record. In front of cameras. 2 weeks until town hall. Time to build the coalition and prepare the presentation that would end Deirdre Colfax's reign. My kitchen table became a war room. 3-ring binder open, tabs color-coded, evidence in red, legal in blue, media in green, community in yellow. I'm not naturally organized. Lori used to joke that my filing system was pilot somewhere visible, but this case needed precision. I made a list of allies and started making calls. First call, Tomas. He showed up 20 minutes later with a laptop and 30 years of EPA case experience. We spread the aquifer maps across my table, and he walked me through the contamination flow path using terms I actually understood. None of that hydrogeological jargon that makes normal people's eyes glaze over. His job at the town hall would be simple. Explain in plain English how Deirdre poisoned her own wells. Make it so clear that even the people who still supported her couldn't deny basic chemistry. Second call, Cheryl. She'd been waiting for this. Agreed to cover the town hall live with a 2-camera setup. 1 wide shot of the room, 1 close-up on whoever was speaking. Her station would stream it on their Facebook page. Public record. No editing, no spin. Third call, Mitch. He'd prepare the legal presentation like he was arguing to a jury. Blown-up photos, lab reports mounted on poster board, timeline graphics. Make it visual. Make it undeniable. Then I got a surprise volunteer. Bryn Wallace, a hydrologist from the State University, had seen Cheryl's news segment and reached out offering pro bono expert testimony. She'd created a computer model showing the exact percolation time from my lake to the subdivision wells, 36 hours through porous limestone, matching perfectly with when residents first reported contamination. She could explain it in 1 sentence that would destroy any remaining doubt. Last addition to the team, Marcus Thorne, former HOA board member who Deirdre had forced out 2 years ago after he opposed her lawn-length tyranny. Marcus had kept every email from his time on the board, including messages showing Deirdre's pattern of selective enforcement, personal vendettas, and abuse of authority. He'd been waiting for his chance at revenge, and I'd just handed it to him. We met at my house 3 days before the town hall, 5 of us around the kitchen table, legal pads and coffee cups everywhere, building the 3-pronged attack. Prong 1, criminal pressure. Tomas had forwarded all evidence to the EPA's Criminal Investigation Division. Federal agents were interviewing witnesses. And here's where it got interesting. Clayton, facing potential jail time, had given a statement blaming Deirdre's obsessive directives. He admitted dumping the chemical but claimed he didn't understand it would contaminate wells. He was trying to save himself by throwing his wife under the bus. Federal environmental crimes carry mandatory minimums. Prosecutors love cases with clear evidence and cooperating witnesses. Every TV interview Deirdre gave was being transcribed and added to the case file. Prong 2. Civil lawsuit escalation. Mitch had filed an expanded complaint adding negligence per se, which is legal speak for when someone violates a law and that violation automatically proves negligence. No debate, no interpretation needed. The statute violation is the proof. We'd also added emotional distress and punitive damages. Discovery had forced the HOA to produce internal emails, and they were devastating. Deirdre had literally Googled how to make a pond unusable 3 weeks before the poisoning. She'd researched chemical options. Premeditation, documented, time-stamped. The HOA's legal bills had hit $40,000 in 2 months. She'd proposed an emergency assessment of $800 per household to cover costs. Residents were furious. Prong 3. Community organizing. Marcus had mobilized the anti-Deirdre faction quietly and efficiently. He'd collected affidavits from 30-plus residents detailing her abuses over the years. $300 fines for Christmas lights up one day past January 6th, harassment letters about deck-stained colors, selective enforcement where her friends got warnings and her enemies got fines. He'd filed a formal removal petition under the HOA bylaws, citing conduct detrimental to community welfare and the water rights violation. It needed a 60% vote at the town hall to pass. My role was simple: stay visible but quiet. Attend meetings without speaking. Let my presence remind people that I wasn't hiding, wasn't afraid, and wasn't going away. 2 days before the town hall, we did a full rehearsal in my living room. Tomas timed his presentation, 6 minutes. Bryn simplified her hydrology explanation, removing every piece of jargon that might lose people. Mitch practiced revealing the covenant clause, adjusting his pacing for maximum impact. We decided to save the covenant bomb for the very end, after all other evidence was presented. Let Deirdre think she could still deflect and defend, then pull the rug out when she had nowhere left to run. Marcus printed 200 evidence packets, photos, lab reports, the covenant clause text, timeline, to distribute to every attendee. Transparency was the weapon. Let people see the facts with their own eyes. Cheryl's advice stuck with me. Let her talk first. Let her defend herself. Every word gives us more material. She can't help herself, she'll lie, and we'll fact-check her in real time. The night before the town hall, I barely slept. Not from nerves, from anticipation, like waiting for a storm you've been tracking for weeks, except you're the one who seeded the clouds. I made coffee at 4 a.m., sat on the dock watching the sky lighten from black to purple to pink. The lake was healing. Water clearer every day. 2 herons had returned that week. I'd watched them fishing at dawn, their reflections perfect in the still surface. By tomorrow night, this would be over, one way or another. Deirdre spent the week before the town hall doing what desperate people do. She lied bigger and louder. First came the Facebook group, Concerned Citizens for Property Values, created 5 days before the meeting, immediately flooded with members. Within 48 hours, it had over 300 people posting things like, Wes Bridger is bankrupting our community, and he's the real polluter, the algae side just exposed what he's been doing, and we need to stand behind our HOA leadership. It looked organic, grassroots support rallying to Deirdre's defense. Except Marcus's granddaughter, a college sophomore majoring in computer science, got curious and ran the member list through bot detection software. 80% of the accounts were fake, registered the same day, profile pictures pulled from stock photo sites, names generated randomly, Jennifer Anderson, Michael Thompson, David Williams, the most generic combinations possible, like someone had just smashed random entries from a phone book together. Marcus screenshot the analysis and posted it to the neighborhood's actual Facebook page with a caption that said, Deirdre is paying for fake supporters. Here's the proof. She thinks we're idiots. The comments section exploded. People who'd been on the fence suddenly weren't anymore. The fake group disappeared within 6 hours, but the screenshots lived forever. Then came the physical intimidation. 4 days before the town hall, I got home around 6 p.m. Still daylight, sun slanting gold through the pine trees, and found Clayton standing at my property line with 2 large men in HOA polo shirts. They had surveying equipment set up, a tripod, a laser level, official-looking clipboards. I parked my truck and walked over, phone already recording video in my shirt pocket. Trick I'd learned from watching too many police encounter videos. Start recording before the conversation starts. Clayton, what's going on? Just a routine survey, Wes, checking for easement violations. He smiled the way people smile when they're trying very hard to look friendly and failing. What easement? The drainage easement. It's in the original plat. There's no drainage easement on my property, and you don't have a county permit for surveying. I checked this morning. I had. Called the county office at 8 a.m., confirmed no permits had been issued for my address. One of the large men, later identified as Clayton's gym buddy, a guy who thought polo shirts made him look official, stepped toward me. We're going to need to see your phone, sir. No, you're not. You can't record us without permission. Georgia's a one-party consent state. I'm the one party. I'm giving myself permission. I held the phone higher. Smile. You're about to be Exhibit F in a harassment lawsuit. The guy stopped, looked at Clayton. Clayton's jaw tightened. You're trespassing, I said calmly. You have no permits, no legal authority, and you're on my property without invitation. You've got 30 seconds to pack up before I call the sheriff. I didn't have to call. A deputy rolled up before I could even pull out my phone. Tomas had been driving past, saw the situation, and called it in immediately. The deputy checked for permits. They had none. He cited Clayton for criminal trespass and told all three of them to leave. I sent the video to Mitch before I even walked back to my house. He replied, "Consciousness of guilt. This is beautiful. They're panicking." 2 days before the town hall, 2 days, I found a letter taped to my front door. Printed on plain white paper, block letters, no signature. Drop the lawsuit or your property won't be worth suing for. Generic HP printer. Standard copy paper you could buy at any Walmart. No fingerprints. They'd worn gloves. Untraceable, but definitely threatening. The sheriff's department classified it as terroristic threats and opened an investigation. Every HOA board member was interviewed. Everyone denied knowledge, including Deirdre, who cried during her interview and claimed she was being persecuted. I made a public statement on the neighborhood Facebook page. Someone just threatened to destroy my property if I don't drop the lawsuit. I'm not dropping it. I've installed security cameras. True, Tomas had helped me set up a whole system over the weekend. And the sheriff has footage of everyone who's approached my property this week. A bluff, but a good one. To whoever sent this, your next mistake will be your last. The response surprised me. 15 neighbors offered to park campers and RVs on my property as a visual deterrent. The local VFW post, guys I'd never met didn't know I existed, sent a representative offering volunteer security patrols. A woman 3 streets over who I'd helped jumpstart her car 2 years ago brought her husband and 2 sons over to install motion sensor lights around my shed and driveway. I was standing there watching strangers wire floodlights to my garage, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Community. Real community. Not the fake HOA version where everyone smiles and reports each other for deck stain violations. Tomas stood next to me, drinking a beer, watching the work. Deirdre united this neighborhood, he said. Just not the way she planned. That night I sat on the dock with my laptop, reviewing our presentation one more time. Mitch had sent the final version, 73 slides, organized like a prosecutor's closing argument. Every claim backed by evidence, every accusation documented with timestamps and sources. Deirdre had played every card she had: lies, fake grassroots support, intimidation, bribery, threats. She was out of moves. We had one final card to play, and she had no idea it existed. Tomorrow, the town hall. Tomorrow, it ended. I watched the moon rise over the lake, water finally clear enough to reflect stars again. Frogs singing in the cattails. A bat swooped low over the surface, catching insects in the last light. Somewhere across the subdivision, Deirdre was probably rehearsing her speech, preparing her defense, psyching herself up to face the crowd. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Deirdre controlled the logistics. She'd booked the community center and intended to use every advantage. She scheduled the meeting for 2 p.m. Wednesday, middle of a workday. Working people couldn't attend. She was banking on retirees and loyal supporters filling seats while everyone else was stuck at their jobs. Marcus caught it immediately and blasted social media. Deirdre scheduled town hall during work hours to suppress attendance. Take a half day. This affects your water. People started posting time off approvals. I'll be there. Took the afternoon off. My boss is coming. He lives here too. Deirdre structured the agenda to bury the controversy. HOA financial report first. 45 minutes of budget minutiae designed to make people leave. Litigation discussion buried 90 minutes in at 3:30 p.m. Marcus found a bylaw clause. Any member may petition for agenda amendment with 20 signatures. He collected 47 and filed to move litigation discussion to first agenda item. Deirdre tried rejecting it, claiming improper format, a lie. The professional moderator she'd hired, Douglas Kern, actual certified parliamentarian, reviewed it and overruled her. Petition meets requirements, agenda amended. Deirdre tried banning cameras, claiming private HOA business. Cheryl arrived early to set up and was confronted immediately. No cameras, closed meeting. Cheryl smiled and pulled out printed Georgia law. HOAs over 50 units follow open meetings requirements under OCGA. R444 to 3221. This is legally public. You can eject me, but you'll violate state law on camera. The HOA's lawyer went pale. She's right. Cheryl's station promoted the live stream. HOA president faces residents after poisoning allegations. Watch live 2 p.m. 1,200 registered to watch online. By 1:45 p.m., cars lined both sides of the street for 3 blocks. People walked from the grocery store a quarter mile away. I arrived at 1:50, parked, and walked toward the building. You could feel the energy from 50 yards out, that electric buzz before something breaks. Inside smelled like burnt coffee, floor wax, nervous sweat. Metal chairs screeched on linoleum. The crowd murmur sounded like wasps in a jar. 183 people in a room for 200. Standing room only. The fire marshal almost shut it down before Douglas promised strict capacity enforcement. The mix, residents, 3 competing reporters, a county commissioner rep, re-election year, an EPA agent taking notes in back, and a state AG lawyer with a leather portfolio and prosecutor's blank face. Deirdre sat at the head table flipping note cards, whispering urgently to the moderator. Navy blazer, chosen to look authoritative, face flushed. She kept glancing at cameras like they'd personally insulted her. Clayton sat 3 rows back, not beside her. Every previous meeting he'd been the supportive husband at the table. Now he was in the audience, staring at his phone. That told me everything. I walked down the center aisle, sat 3rd row, directly in Deirdre's sight line. Tomas left, Marcus right. Mitch 2 rows back with his wheeled litigation case. Whispers. Pointing. One old guy gave me a thumbs up. Deirdre saw me. Her jaw tightened. Our eyes met across 20 feet and I saw it flicker. Fear. Douglas gavelled at 2:07 p.m. This meeting is now in session. First roll call and quorum verification. The room went silent, pre-storm quiet. Second item, as amended, litigation and water contamination discussion. Mrs. Colfax, you have the floor. Deirdre stood, smoothed her blazer, deep breath, put on her realtor smile, all teeth and practiced confidence. Thank you all for coming. I know this has been a difficult time for our community. We're here because one individual's frivolous lawsuit is costing this community thousands in legal fees and threatening our financial stability. She gestured toward papers on the table. The so-called contamination was a natural algae bloom exacerbated by agricultural runoff from fishing activities. Independent analysis confirms this. Someone in the crowd muttered, "That's bull." Deirdre ignored it. I've been vilified in the media for doing my job, protecting your property values, maintaining community standards. The real issue here is a property owner who refuses to follow basic environmental stewardship. Her voice was getting louder, defensive, hands trembling slightly. She kept glancing at Clayton, who wouldn't look up from his phone. I've dedicated 4 terms to this community. I've sacrificed personal time, faced harassment, received threats, all to preserve what makes Ridgeline Meadows special, and now I'm being attacked for taking action when county officials wouldn't. She introduced her expert witness, Dale, the pool guy in a rented suit who'd written the bogus report. He stood, cleared his throat, and began reading. Based on my analysis of water samples and observed site conditions, the contamination is consistent with fertilizer runoff patterns common in recreational fishing environments. It was wooden, rehearsed, unconvincing. Douglas said, "The floor is now open for questions and community input." Tomas stood. The room shifted. Everyone knew Tomas, retired EPA, 30 years investigating environmental crimes. If Tomas was standing, someone was about to get destroyed. "I have a question for Mr. Dale," Thomas said, voice calm and conversational. "You mentioned fertilizer runoff. Can you tell me the nitrogen to phosphorus ratio in the contaminated samples?" Dale blinked. I'd have to check my notes." "I'll wait." Dale flipped through papers. It's Well, the ratio varies depending on... It's a simple question. What's the NP ratio? I don't have that specific number here. Because you didn't test for it, did you? You're a pool cleaner, not a water quality analyst. Tomas wasn't being cruel, just factual. Let me ask something simpler. What's the half-life of AquaClear Pro in porous limestone? Silence. You don't know, Tomas continued. It's 18 to 24 months, which means every well within a mile will show contamination for 2 years. Your algae bloom theory doesn't explain the copper oxide signature. That's synthetic. It doesn't occur naturally in Georgia mud. Dale sat down. Deirdre's face had gone from flushed to pale. Bryn Wallace stood next, introduced herself as a hydrologist from the State University. She had a laptop connected to the projector, pulled up an animated graphic that filled the screen behind Deirdre's head. This is a flowpath model of the Meridian Aquifer, she said. The animation showed my lake as a blue dot, with lines flowing downward through layers of rock, branching out to connect with dozens of small red dots, the subdivision wells. Water from the lake percolates through 50 feet of porous limestone. Travel time, 36 hours on average. She clicked to the next slide, a timeline. Chemical dumping occurred at approximately 3 a.m. on May 14th. First contamination reports from residential wells. May 15th, 3 p.m., elapsed time, 36 hours. She let that hang in the air. The chemical signature in the wells is identical to the signature in the lake. Not similar, identical. Same copper sulfate compound, same concentration ratio, same trace elements. They appeared in the wells exactly when the science predicts they would. She looked directly at Deirdre. This isn't a theory, it's documented fact. Someone in the audience started clapping. Then more people joined. Within seconds, half the room was applauding. Deirdre stood. This is clearly a coordinated attack. Douglas cut her off. Mrs. Colfax, you'll have time for rebuttal. Please let the community input continue. Marcus stood next, holding a manila folder thick with papers. I served on this board for 3 years before Mrs. Colfax removed me for opposing her excessive fines. During that time, I kept copies of everything. He started distributing stapled packets to people in the front rows who passed them back. These are emails from Mrs. Colfax dating back 6 months. Page 3. We need to eliminate the fishing pond before spring property assessments. People flipped pages reading. Page 7. Text message to her husband Clayton dated May 11th, 3 days before the poisoning. Handle the pond problem this week before media catches wind. Make it look environmental. Gasps. Someone said, "Oh my God." Marcus kept going. Page 12, group chat where she researched chemical options. She literally Googled how to make a lake unusable without obvious evidence. Deirdre shot to her feet. Those are private communications. This is illegal. They're discovery documents from the lawsuit, Marcus said calmly. Public court record. Anyone can read them. Deirdre looked at her lawyer. He wouldn't meet her eyes. You planned this, Marcus continued. You researched it. You directed your husband to do it. And when you got caught, you tried to blame the victim. These emails prove premeditation. The room erupted in overlapping voices, people shouting questions, accusations, demanding answers. Douglas had to gavel 3 times to restore order. Deirdre's voice cracked when she tried to respond. I was protecting this community. By poisoning our water? Someone yelled from the back. By making our kids sick? Another voice. I have medical bills from my daughter's rash. Douglas gavelled again. Order. We will have order or I'll clear the room. The noise died down to angry murmurs. Mitch stood, tall, calm, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. Before we continue, there's a legal matter this board needs to address immediately. He walked to the front, nodded to Douglas, and the projector screen changed. Now it showed a scanned document, old typewriter font, dated 1987. This is the original HOA covenant, filed with the county when Ridgeline Meadows Incorporated. He used a laser pointer to highlight a specific paragraph. Section 14, subsection C. I'll read it verbatim. No action by the homeowners association shall impair, restrict, or interfere with water rights, navigable water access, or riparian privileges predating the incorporation of this association. He paused, looked around the room. Mr. Bridger's lake dates to 1962. This HOA incorporated in 1987. Any action taken against his water rights violates this covenant. Deirdre interrupted. That's absurd, Mitch continued like she hadn't spoken. The next sentence is the important one. Any officer, director, or member who violates this provision shall immediately forfeit eligibility to hold association office or vote on association matters. The room went dead silent. Mrs. Colfax authorized action against a protected water right. Under your own governing documents, she forfeited her presidency the moment she did it. Every decision she's made since then, every fine, every expenditure, every vote is legally void. Douglas was flipping through his own copy of the covenants, face getting paler by the second. Mitch looked at Deirdre. Did you know about this clause? This is a technicality. It's not a technicality. It's a binding contract you agreed to when you bought your home here. You violated it. The consequence is clear. Douglas cleared his throat. I've confirmed the clause. It's in the covenants. He looked at Deirdre, and there was almost pity in his voice. Mrs. Colfax, based on this provision, I have to ask, are you aware you may no longer have authority to act as HOA president? Deirdre stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Her face had gone from pale to red to pale again. This is a witch hunt. She grabbed her purse, knocked over her water glass. It hit the floor and shattered. This is illegal harassment. She started toward the exit. A man in the back stood up, pulled out credentials. Mrs. Colfax, I'm Agent Reeves with the EPA Criminal Investigation Division. Before you leave, I need to speak with you regarding potential violations of the Clean Water Act. You're not under arrest, but I strongly advise you to cooperate. Deirdre froze mid-step. She turned, looked at the agent, looked at the cameras with their red recording lights, looked at the 200 faces staring at her. Then she looked at Clayton. He was already standing, walking toward the side exit, phone pressed to his ear. He didn't look back. Deirdre's shoulders sagged. She sat back down heavily, put her head in her hands, and started crying. The room was silent except for the sound of Cheryl's cameras recording and the quiet scratch of the AG lawyer taking notes. Douglas gavelled softly. This meeting is adjourned pending legal review of association governance. People filed out slowly, whispering, stunned. I sat there for a moment longer, feeling strangely empty, like I'd been carrying something heavy for months and had finally set it down, and now I didn't know what to do with my hands. Tomas clapped me on the shoulder. You did it. We did it, I said. Outside, the sun was still shining. Birds were singing. The world had kept turning while Deirdre's collapsed. The morning after the town hall, I woke up at 6 a.m. like always, made coffee, and walked to the dock. The lake was glass still, mist rising in silver sheets, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel the weight in my chest when I stood there. The legal aftermath came fast. Deirdre pleaded guilty to misdemeanor environmental tampering. Prosecutors dropped the felony in exchange for her testimony against Clayton. He got 18 months federal probation and a $50,000 fine. Deirdre got a year probation, 200 hours community service, and a lifetime ban from serving on any Georgia HOA board. The judge made her do her community service hours cleaning trash from public lake access points. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The civil case settled for $320,000 3 weeks later. Full remediation costs, legal fees, punitive damages. I didn't have to set foot in a courtroom, just signed papers and it was over. Marcus won the emergency HOA election with 89% of votes. His first act, putting the ridiculous architectural restrictions up for community vote. Grass height limits? Gone. Approved paint colors? Gone. RV parking bans? Gone. Property values went up that year. Freedom sells. The lake remediation took 4 months. Contractors filtered the water, treated the soil, introduced beneficial bacteria to break down toxins. By September, the state certified it safe again. I restocked with 700 native bass and bluegill from the state hatchery. Organized volunteer days with Marcus. 40 residents showed up to plant cattails and willows, build bird boxes, install educational signs about aquifer ecology. Kids got muddy, parents got involved. Tomas led a workshop on water testing that had people actually excited about pH levels. I donated a conservation easement for supervised kids fishing and built a floating dock with a bronze plaque, Lori's Legacy Dock, in memory of Lori Bridger, who believed water should bring people together. Opening day, 17 kids showed up. I taught casting, explained catch and release, answered why bass have big mouths. A 7-year-old caught a bluegill and screamed so loud every heron on the lake took off at once. His mom thanked me crying, said they couldn't afford gear or lessons, but her son had been asking about fishing since seeing the news. That's when I knew what to do with the settlement money. The Bridger Aquifer Education Fund, a $100,000 scholarship endowment for students pursuing environmental science, hydrology, water resources. First recipient, Marcus's granddaughter, who'd switched from computer science to environmental engineering after exposing Deirdre's fake Facebook campaign. Her essay, How My Grandfather Taught Me to Question Authority and Protect What Matters. We launched the annual Ridgeline Meadows Conservation Festival, fishing demos, water testing stations, EPA speakers, wetland preservation fundraising. 300 people came the first year. 3 nearby HOAs contacted Marcus asking how to reform their covenants. A movement started. On Lori's death anniversary, I scattered wildflower seeds around the lake. Black-eyed Susans, coneflowers, her favorites. By summer, they bloomed in yellow and purple waves, pulling butterflies and hummingbirds from everywhere. Thomas and I started weekly fishing mornings. 2 widowers, comfortable silence, lines in water, not catching much. Sometimes fishing isn't about fish. Cheryl kept visiting to check restoration progress. 3rd visit, she brought coffee. 5th visit, her father's old tackle box for the kids' program. 7th visit, she stayed for dinner. We talked journalism, engineering, the absurdity of HOA dictators, everything except what we were both thinking. 8th visit, sunset on the dock, she kissed me. Lake reflecting fire-orange sky, frogs singing. First time since Lori died, I felt something other than grief. Water flows. Things heal if you stop poisoning them. All right, your turn. What's the most insane thing an HOA has done to you? I'm reading every comment. Shout out to @JenM47, whose HOA fined her for unauthorized garden gnomes, and @RickTX cited for his truck being too blue. This is therapy, people. Hit subscribe if you made it this far. You're now part of Karen Stories, where petty tyrants meet their match every single week. Next episode, a Facebook moderator tries banning a veteran from flying the American flag, doesn't realize he's a retired military lawyer who's memorized the Freedom to Display the American Flag Act better than his own birthday. Ends with a city council apology and a flagpole 1 foot taller than regulations. You'll love it. Right now, I'm grabbing my coffee and heading to the dock. Thermos full, tackle box ready, lake smelling like warm mud and willow bark again, exactly how it should. Sometimes justice isn't about destroying your enemy. It's about reclaiming what they tried to take. In my case, they tried taking my peace. I took it back, along with $320,000 and their drinking water. Thanks for watching HOA Tales. See you next week.